Alright, now we're recording. Hello, welcome to the, I should call this something. I'm thinking about calling it the Dandy Podcast. And with most podcasts, and most things when you're doing it the first time, it's gonna be pretty garbage. It's gonna suck. And, it doesn't always have to suck. It could probably be really great the first time, who knows? And, I think it really depends on like what people really determine as actually good or quality and stuff. Like quality is always subjective and stuff, but like I guess for some people it depends on like their expectation of what they want out of a podcast. So, with this podcast, we're gonna talk about the industry, like gaming industries, and we're going to talk about indie games. We're going to talk about soundtracks. We're going to talk about like all sorts of different things. Uh, with me is a guest. I'll introduce. He'll introduce himself, I guess. I don't know. Um, oh God, I'm all over the place. And we are live.
Alright, I'm off mute now.
This is my guest, Leviathan. He is a good friend, and he helps me with a bunch of different projects and stuff. Uh,
Hello,
uh,
I am Leviathan. I am actually a Leviathan.
it's true. It's a canon fact. He is, in fact, a Leviathan. I have to go out to the shores and see him by the sea and the bays. He's lurking in the bottom and the depths below.
Truly.
So, didn't we work on those? Didn't we work on some indie games before, like a while back?
Yeah, we worked on Harem is Getting Better, the video game, the
Yeah.
legendary, and Shooting McFace, which is like a spiritual successor to Harem is Getting Better.
Yeah. No, I don't think we really finished it. I think. I
Yeah,
think we got to like the fourth boss or something, like the space boss, and then we kind of just then we stopped at some point because it was like I don't know. Well, what kind
yeah.
of
Development was a bit like rocky for a while. Like it was sort of like off and on. Like I feel like you sort of started working on the game initially, and then we sort of started back up and we sort of collaborated a little bit. Then we took like a little break and then went back to developing it, and
we
then
had
like
like
all.
respiratory systems or something, and we had something set up, and it's I still kind of still trying to wrap my head around it. It was a little
Yeah,
complicated.
there's like a co-op mode and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was cool. How did you do that?
Um, I just added additional like inputs for like another player.
And it was in Game Maker, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was all made with Game Maker.
Did
That was
you
Harem is Getting Better. It was also made with Game Maker.
so with Shooting McFace? Did you like do like the drag and drop programming or something, or did you do like just all type in everything in manually?
Um, well, it was sort of like drag and drop type of stuff. I dragged and dropped objects onto the scenes, but a lot of the coding for how like the player moved and how the enemies moved and stuff, that was all programming.
How'd you learn how to program?
Uh, so I started programming actually all the way back in high school when I was taking computer science classes back then. I started learning Java, but I really started learning programming to learn like game development. So learning game development, I had to like learn like a whole totally different language like GML for Game Maker or C Sharp for Unity, which wasn't too hard knowing a language already.
Oh. Uh, what advice would you give to me if like I wanted to learn a language for the first time?
Um, just do a lot of like Googling, watch a lot of YouTube videos, um, follow a lot of tutorials, try to figure out some sort of like basic project to work on, um, to just figure things out pretty much.
I have
Go from there.
I have a few ideas I have for like simple games to kind of try and learn like the engine I'm working with. But I also have this other project that I'm currently working on or whatever. I'm gonna upload this in the Discord, and I'll probably upload this on the channel if it gets out there and stuff. But like, I want to work on a JRPG that's kind of similar to like some of the Mario RPG games or whatever, and those sort of spin-offs. I've been trying to design characters for the game or whatever. So like the first image I have up here is like some like early designs for like expressions for like this main character that I'm trying to conceptualize.
Hmm.
And oh wait, I have another thing I need to upload. So there's so the first thing the last thing that I upload was like the first draft for like a bunch of like early character design concepts or whatever for like party members for this game or whatever. And the second one is me kind of trying to practice it's me trying to practice using tablet drawing, and um, the second one is me practicing drawing with a tablet, and just trying to figure that out and trying to use a new software that I recently got called like Krita, and it's pretty good for drawing overall. And I'm probably going to use it over GIMP a little more. But I mean, GIMP has its place in a way. It's useful for what it does, and I've been just trying to conceptualize. I'm in like the pre-production phase of like trying to plan out like the design, the characters, and a bunch of other different things. And I've heard with JRPGs and that sort of design in games, it's really important that you plan things out more versus actually kind of just diving in and trying to figure things out. And most developments overall kind of start that way, where it's like you're just diving in with some concept and some vague ideas, and then you're just trying to figure it out and trying to put it all out there and stuff. But then you go into a bunch of design problems or whatever, where you never really realize them first off, just from trying to conceptualize them, and then it kind of slows development down. So I think for the first part of development, I just want to plan everything out and make sure everything seems nice, and then try to go into like a prototyping phase. But that part's probably going to be a little tricky though, because I mean, even though I think in my head I have some really genius design insights and stuff, I think one of the main hurdles that I'm going to go through is coding, and then there's also kind of trying to figure out like, all right, what designs work and what designs don't work, and it's just going to be a really tricky process. So I guess maybe starting off, I should try to maybe I or you or we I don't know. I kind of just want to work on some like really small projects to kind of familiarize myself with like the engine and stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good plan. You definitely want to plan out JRPGs more than like say like a platformer or something, where with like a platformer you just want to like play around with the engine, see if you can get like the physics right, try to adjust it until like you're satisfied with a certain movement. With JRPG, where movement isn't really much of an issue, it's more like linear. I feel like there's a lot more planning involved, a lot more design, like what the story is going to be, what the character designs are going to be, how the combat's going to work. That definitely helps.
I've been actually having trouble trying to find like any sort of design insights on JRPGs and stuff. Like I have I mean, it's kind of a medium that I've played and I've kind of enjoyed, but I didn't really think about it so much until I started playing some of the older Mario RPG games. Like I recently played a while ago. No, that's kind of a double negative. I recently started playing Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, and and their designs are like, it got me really thinking about just that sort of genre or whatever, and their designs and stuff. Like when I played games like Persona, like with like 5 and 4, I kind of played them in reverse. With Persona game design or whatever, like the combat in the game is it's very different from like the JRPG styles in Mario, where it's like in in the Mario games or whatever, it's more timing based, and there's like a lot of mini games that kind of enhance and flavor the fun and stuff. Whereas the designs in Persona or whatever, they there's like I guess there's more of a strategic element to it, to trying to have a cohesive party, and there's also kind of an element of just trying to crush the game as much as possible, or I just think in general the overall game design of Persona isn't really all that fun, and and oh god, um, and I think I want to try. I wanted to try to design a game where it kind of tries to borrow a bunch of different elements from a bunch of different like games that are like where you uh, where you have like a really main cohesive narrative and stuff. Or oh god, my head's getting all fuzzy and spinning now. Let's kind of dial it back a bit. Um, uh, I need to take five actually. Let's do this again. We're back. We're back this time. Finally back. Um, so one of the things that I really like to do as a hobby is I like sometimes when I play these really cool like indie games or whatever. There's sometimes where it's like, or it doesn't even need to be really an indie game. It could just be any game, and if I recognize that it has a really great soundtrack, I just really fall in love with just the soundtrack and stuff, and I end up kind of like listening to it over and over and over and stuff until I get sick of it. And even then, I kind of just listen to it like forever after or whatever. It's like like VVV or like 6V, right?
Yeah, I know that one.
I remember you said that like you didn't really like the game because it was kind of like uh what did you say?
I don't know if I really didn't like the game. It was more like I sort of just got bored of it.
Oh, yeah. I think it was I think for its concept it took the platforming like concept or whatever, and it kind of limited to it where it's like it's I guess yeah, I guess it makes sense you got bored of it. But like you can agree that the soundtrack for that game is like really banger, right?
Oh yeah, the soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah. I think some of my favorite tracks are like oh crap, I'm gonna look this up. Like they're the soundtracks names are all in like P's or whatever. Um, there's like my two favorites have to be like Potential for Anything and Pressure Cooker, and
Hmm.
uh, I'm gonna post it in here. And if you go on the next track on the playlist, it's Pressure Cooker or whatever. Like those two tracks are like just my favorite. And part of what made it my favorite or whatever was I think because it's like there's like some like YTP MVs of that stuff or whatever, or it's like there's like some remixes, and that kind of just enhanced my enjoyment for just that those tracks. And the thing about like video game OSTs, there's some experts or whatever like I think the guy's name was Tim Foley or something. He said that video game OSTs are supposed to be more atmospheric, and they're supposed to be kind of not really at the center consciousness of your mind and stuff, but kind of just in the background and stuff. But like when the soundtrack is really funky, groovy, or like just awesome in general, then it enhances the experience in a way where it's like it feels really good to play the game, and it feels good to listen to the game too. And there was this one game or whatever that I recently played that had this really amazing soundtrack or whatever. It's called Dicey Dungeons, and it's composed by Chipsel, and it happens to be by the same developer that made VVV, but it's a different composer. But still, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing, and I'm thinking about like making another one of those like OST mixes that I made, like for that thing. Have you played any games recently that have like really cool soundtracks?
Um, Not that I can think of right now, but I just want to give a shout out to one game that makes really good atmospheric soundtracks. Nuclear Throne, of course,
Oh yeah, yeah, Nuclear
has
Throne.
such great atmospheric soundtracks. Like just the menu theme gets you hyped up for like the sort of chaos that's about to ensue, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
this Nuclear Throne has a really great
mhm.
OSTs and stuff. They just really go all out and stuff with the intros and stuff. Like I remember kind of just like waiting in the menus for it to kind of just rev up so that I can sync the song that would play next or whatever. There's actually two files or whatever. There's two files for like they play the first file for when you're in like the menus, and then they play the second immediately when you're in the character select screen. But what I would do is I would wait for it to like time up just right, so that like the song would kind of just play out in its entirety or whatever. And I just really loved just that main theme. That's like my favorite soundtrack in the game.
Yeah, yeah. The main theme's great. I really like the boss themes and the B themes for the level are really good. My favorite's the Palace B theme
Oh
because it's
yeah,
like gives you like goosebumps as you're like about to get to the throne. If
I've
you're like
I've
low health, then you get that.
I've never actually heard that in game yet, and I've always tried to like I've gotten myself at low health just to hear that theme, and I never really heard it. I even got like a skeleton run once off the ground, and I never heard it. I never heard the B theme for like the palace, and it's a shame because it's like when you listen to like the OSTs like on probably the web or something, it's like you can hear that track and it sounds really desperate and
Yeah,
really really I don't know how to describe it. It's like I think with the B themes it just sounds kind of sad all the time.
yeah. Super melancholy.
And it's like a direct contrast from like just the completely banger just rock and stuff.
Hmm.
And I guess it's great for like a post-apocalypse theme because it kind of just really kind of puts this emotion where it wouldn't really be there before, where it really is kind of a post-apocalypse and the world's ending and everybody's kind of just trying to fight to survive and stuff. But that kind of at some point that does get into like that gets into your the backseat of your mind at some point, but then it kind of fades out at some point when you're just playing through the loops and stuff with Nuclear Throne,
Yeah.
and you're just like you're doing the daily grind and you're just like shooting a bunch of SPCs and you're trying to dodge all these vans
Hmm.
and all the popo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nuclear Throne's pretty fun.
Hmm.
And have you played Luftrausers or whatever? Like it's another one of Vlamvir's works.
Yeah. I haven't played that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's like a kind of like a shoot 'em up in a way, but it's like it's set in World War II ish, and you're like a German pilot, and it's pretty fun, but it's a little different from Nuclear Throne in terms of structure, where it's like in Nuclear Throne you're kind of going from level to level and fighting a bunch of different enemies and stuff, but like in Luftrausers you're kind of just flying around and you're trying to dodge all these different enemy types that gradually start coming at you more and more. Like the more you kill things, and you have to go rack up combos and stuff. It's a very arcade game and stuff. It's not really a roguelite like Nuclear Throne, but it's still pretty fun to like pick up and stuff. And and its soundtrack, it's pretty dynamic or whatever. It's like whenever you have a different thing equipped, if you have like a different hull and then a hull, the thrusters, and the weapon. Depending on your combination, you get a bunch of different like sounds that play or whatever. That makes it's really interesting that it has that sort of dynamic soundtrack depending on like what you decided to run for your run. And the soundtrack also changes depending on like how much health you have or whatever. If you get hit, it's like it kind of reverberates everything and stuff, and it sounds really nice.
That's pretty cool. So I guess Vlambeer's pretty good at like integrating sort of like sound design and music design into like the gameplay.
Yeah, they do a really good job with that stuff, and it's kind of sad to see them kind of go.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, it's really great that they made all those games and stuff. Like I really I really look up to them and stuff, and just the games that they've made, and just I kind of I want to try and make games like that where it's how do I put this? I mean I just kind of want to make games that are really good and stuff. And
Hmm.
I mean I always have wanted to make games like when I was like 10 or something or whatever. I used to scribble a bunch of little designs or whatever, little Mario courses that were kind of really off the rails and crazy looking. And but they were like my game ideas that I wanted to send to Nintendo or something. And I think I just really need to try and like make these things instead of really just talking about just making it and stuff. I just have to put the work in and all that.
Yeah. I mean, having ideas is one thing, but putting them to like use and like actually going out and doing it is a totally different thing.
Yeah, and it's like I'm like a I'm like a really huge ideas person and stuff. And I almost want to say that I'm not like I'm not like those other people that have ideas and stuff, but I kind of am if I just don't really put them anywhere.
Mm.
I mean, I think I base a lot of my experience and my insight off of just probably off of watching like internet videos, because I mean you could probably learn a lot of things from the internet. You can also learn a lot of unlessons where it's like you learn something that isn't really helpful or it is actually very counterproductive. But I have a good idea of what makes games fun, and I think it would be good to really test that sort of knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked about OSTs. Let's talk about the industry. Um, so oh crap. So with indie games or whatever, um, well, what do you think about indie games?
Um, like the industry or the games themselves.
Just kind of that. Okay. Maybe I should preface this. Like, I'm not really talking about like indie games that like everybody's heard of, like Celeste or like Nuclear Throne, stuff that just has a lot of like that has a huge following behind it and stuff. But I'm talking about like really obscure indie games that you've probably never heard of and stuff. Just like yeah, just like what do you think of like indie games in general and that sort of I don't want to call it a genre, but like yeah, just that.
Yeah, I'd have to say that those like super obscure games that no one's heard of are actually just my favorite games to find and play because you never really know what to expect with them, you know? And they always tend to be a lot more like creative and interesting than anything else you'd find. Like, for example, take Dix McGee, which is just a bunch of JPEGs of like Will Smith and DMX and Obama running around and mashups playing in the background, and the whole thing is just like
Oh my god,
chaos.
Dix
But
McGee.
it's so great just because the writing's amazing and the mashups are really funny and like the even the designs of the characters. Maybe they could have used some work, and it was just an RPG Maker game, so it wasn't the like most intricate combat, but still, it was a pretty interesting game to play.
Yeah, like Dix Miggy was like a really high quality shit post that was like, yeah, I remember you streamed it or whatever, and it was funny, it was great, and I agree. I think with indie games, it's like usually it's there's a lot of people that are trying to compete for like the same thing, and we're currently in like the indie apocalypse, which was kind of hypothesized back in like 2012 or something, where it's like the tools for making indie games has become highly accessible, and everybody's kind of just trying to crowd on top of each other to try to say like, hey, play my game, and it's kind of just really hard to find your voice in just this in the marketplace currently because there's a bunch of people that are trying to do the same exact thing, and a lot of really great games. Some of them are actually some of them might be not so good, but like a lot of great games just end up kind of falling to the wayside because I don't know if it's either the marketing that's not good enough or it's just that like it hasn't really developed enough of a following or whatever to really kind of have a voice in the industry. And how did you find Dix Mickey?
Um, so I'm pretty sure I was lurking in some Discord server, and I saw somebody post like a link to like a YouTube video with Dix McGee, and that's how I found it.
Oh yeah. So would you say that's like word of mouth?
I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth is it's kind of a really finicky, chaotic it's a very chaotic like advertising thing where it probably doesn't work, but for the few times it does, for the few times we hear about these really cool things,
Hmm.
it's a wild ride. Like
Yeah.
there was this one game that I played in the Discord or whatever that was recommended from a friend. I'm gonna scroll up a bit. It was called Beyond Crimson Stars or whatever, and and it was a really weird and kind of scary but interesting game where they taught it was pretty edgy and stuff, and I think it was just a very interesting experience overall. Um, how do dude? I think I don't really. I think it's been so long though since I played that game. It wasn't really a game. It was more of a walking simulator, but and it was also kind of self aware that it was some kind of art game. But I didn't really know what art game meant. Like I don't think I have much experience in the medium of walking simulators or art games. But this was a really weird game that I've never heard of, and I decided on the whim. You know what? I'm gonna give this a try, and I think for the experience, it was very interesting, and it was just really weird and out there, but it was crazy and it was interesting. It was time well spent and stuff, I guess. And I think with some indie games that you kind of stumble onto, it's like there's some that really have like a really good influence on you. That just they put a really good impression and they're really fun and they're nice and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Uh oh no, it's happening again. I'm just gonna keep it rolling and I'll just I'll sort this out. But like
Alright.
I think it's hard to find some of those games or whatever when there's just a bunch of games kind of being churned out every day or whatever, and like there's some games that aren't really quite for me and there's some games that definitely are. It's like and it's really hard to kind of really kind of get into the indie game scene or whatever because there's just so much of it out there that everybody's trying to get out, and excuse me. There's so much that everybody's trying to get out there, and there's oh crap. There's another reason. I think there's also this kind of this bias against indie games. I feel like whenever I try to bring it up to some like gaming discords or whatever, it's like, hey, I've been playing X game, and then people kind of look at me like, what the hell? What game is? What are you playing, man? What is this? This isn't. What the hell are you playing?
This isn't Call of Duty.
This isn't Call of Duty. Come on, let's go back to Minecraft. This is my game. I feel like for some people they kind of need to like hear about it first before they like give it a try or just dive in. I mean, sometimes that's how I kind of play my games and stuff, but like sometimes I also kind of just try to actively go on like these these kind of exploration phases where I'm trying to find like the next like I'm trying to find the underground Undertale, I guess. Uh, I probably could have worded that better. But yeah, I'm just trying to look for those kind of sort of experiences where it's I guess I just have a lot of fun playing the games and stuff, and sometimes it can be hard to find new games to play. Um,
I think sometimes there's like a bit of like luck involved too with finding some game. Like sometimes you just stumble upon something and then you just happen to have fun with it.
it's
I
it's
feel like if you look too hard, like you just end up finding like a bunch of stuff that's like sort of good. It's okay,
a lot
but
of experimental stuff.
yeah, definitely.
It's really a roll of the dice. It's it can be hard to find something for so you it's kind of hard to find the experience that you kind of want to have and stuff. It's I think part of it also comes down to part of it's not just word of mouth, but it's also kind of publishing and stuff. It's like you hear a lot more about some games because there's more like ads kind of being pushed out there and stuff. So then there's a sense of word of mouth kind of spreading even at like much more because it's like, hey, I heard about X game and it's pretty good. And with some games or whatever that have such a unique style and certain fandoms to them, they if they're I guess in some sense there's definitely going to be a word of mouth spreading if the first one was a hit. So then now you have kind of like some sequels or whatever that are being generated, but consequently, I think this would mean that like if you tried to like base yourself as a developer to kind of just churn out a series instead of like a game, then you kind of get stuck with the same product that you're just trying to improve upon over the last one. So where am I going with this? um, yeah, and I think it's just the indie game. The indie game scene isn't really all that accessible towards like a mass towards a bigger, wider medium or whatever, unless there's like publishing backing it, and it's like and it's presented on like a pretty magazine or something. And that's kind of how people kind of get their games out there now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it
And
must be something like Undertale or Celeste.
yeah, I think they just kind of blew up. Well, I
Yeah.
think with Celeste, I think Undertale and Celeste, there's two different things of how they got big. For Undertale, it kind of just blew up on its own. Like a bunch of people kind of found it, and they decided, you know what, let's well, what if Undertale was given to like some people like some big names or whatever, some big personalities like Markiplier or something, or like no, PewDiePie wouldn't play that game. Like just a bunch of big personalities that have these huge followings. I mean, that's really how a game kind of gets traction nowadays. But like it, I feel like Undertale just kind of blew up on its own, where it was kind of on the Steam storefront or whatever, and it was being advertised as this thing, and I guess a lot of people were buying it and talking about it, and word of mouth just kind of blew up, and then it was just this huge game that was like
Yeah.
bigger than what it really was, but like
Hmm.
I think I think it was kind of a little better, honestly, when it was like it was a little underground a bit, and I think at some point then it started to get a little crazy when there was like a fandom and stuff. It wasn't it wasn't more than what it was, but it was still at the end of the day a really good game. It had a
Hmm.
really nice soundtrack and stuff. I bought that game because of its soundtrack, because it had a really I was familiar with Megalovania before it was just a huge meme. Like I remember there was an Earthbound Halloween hack. Then there was like this Homestuck thing. I tried reading that, but then I kind of just gave up somewhere. And then and then it's like, yeah, it's just Megalovania. But with Celeste or whatever. Now Undertale's success was kind of really is was kind of defined by a really chaotic word of mouth going so crazy and out of proportion that it started to become this huge thing. And Celeste, I theorize it had some funding but backed behind it. It was and I think some YouTube I think maybe oh crap. I think some YouTubers got paid to like play this game, some big names or whatever, and then they turned out that it was a really good game and they really liked it, and then from there on it's like a bunch of people started playing the game, and then it became a hit that way. So I mean, um, hang on, I need to look this up a bit.
I mean, I think the first time I even heard of Celeste was when Donkey played it.
Yeah, I almost think I'm not sure about this conspiracy. I don't even want to call it a conspiracy. Um, I think like they like the developer the it's also the publishers and yeah, it's just the developers. The developers Matt Makes Games, who also made I think they made Towerfall. Um, yeah, oh, they also made Give Up Robot. You ever play that Flash game?
No.
Oh yeah, they've made a few Flashback games back then. That's pretty cool. I never knew that. So so they made so they made Towerfall beforehand, and it was kind of a lukewarm success, I think. And they uh, I think they paid some like big ups to kind of like play their game or something, and then from there it just spiraled and blew out. And I think with some games or whatever, if they're already successful in some ways, there are some people that'll try to capitalize on that trend or whatever, and then from there it spreads out even further. Like I think this kind of applies to Lisa, the RPG or the Painful. Yeah, Lisa the Painful. It was a I think early on it was pretty successful and stuff, and then Donkey decided, you know what, I want to give this game a try, and then that was kind of a horrible impression. Uh, so he played it to kind of capitalize on that sort of success, and then because of his influence and his sheer scope and him being like a really big personality and stuff, he kind of made that game like kind of double dip in terms of its success, where it's like it just kind of got bigger and blew up from there.
Hmm.
And while we're on the topic of the Lisa the Painful. I want to give a shout out to Lisa the Pointless. Have you ever heard of Lisa the Pointless?
Yeah, that was that like fan made sequel or something, fan made spin-off. I don't know. Fan
Yeah,
made inspired by Lisa game. I
yeah,
think I played a little bit of it, but I never really like continued.
yeah. I played through Lisa the Hopeful and Lisa the Pointless, and in terms of design, I really loved Lisa the Pointless or whatever because it was probably the first like JRPG that I've ever played that feels like super challenging and makes you really kind of just really holding on edge most of the time because the saves are limited and because it's like you have a limited amount of supplies and just limited amount of ways to like kind of replenish your health and just limited resources in general and you're just really scraping by and you're really on edge 90% of the time because there's just so much chaos and stuff going on and I really love the story of that game too and supposedly there's a chapter 2 that's coming out that's still in development and I'm just in general really excited for just that game and but for its early presentation or whatever I absolutely love the game, and I think I'm gonna remember it for a while.
Hmm.
But it's not really quite as big as just the regular Lisa, and I think the more time passes with some games or whatever, it's like that people kind of it reverberates and echoes in terms of its influence ever. When a game gets really big and large or whatever, like the longer the time it passes where it's like the game is out there or whatever, if it's a huge hit, it kind of stays a huge hit, but over time it gets more and more quiet over time. There's and you have like probably some of the patient people that kind of wait for it to die down a little and then give it a try or whatever, or just because it's like they or because they kind of just didn't really set aside the time to really give it a try when it was out there. But like so with some games or whatever, it just gets really big and then it reverberates and it just kind of fades out over time until nobody really remembers the game that much. And there's only really a few people that still kind of talk about the game still to the day. And I guess the thing about word of mouth is that if a game has had such a resonance and impact on people, that it can still continue to spread even after it's like after its launch. And usually with most games, it you really want to focus on the launch and make sure you get all those monies. You get all those monies like in the early launch or whatever, and
Mad
then
Stacks.
the mad stacks, and 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 that kind of I guess defines its success. But sometimes if you make a really good game and it probably doesn't succeed at first, so it might become a sleeper hit where it's like eventually someone finds that someone probably stumbles onto the game and was like, "Whoa, dude, this game, it was magnificent, man. No, it was radical, dude." And then and then they talk about that game to like other people. It's like, "Yo, bro, yo, what's up? You gotta try this game, man. It's really awesome. What game is that? It is um, Twin Dragons starring Jackie Chan. Really? Yeah, it's a really awesome game developed by so and so. So and so? I never heard of so and so. So like if a game is really good and people really like it, then I mean that's really all that really matters at the end of the day. I mean, the money is one thing. I mean, it puts food on the table and it puts keeps the lights on and stuff. But like, if you, I think really at what the most important thing is like if you make a game and it's good. If it's good, then it's gonna be someone that's gonna stumble onto it is just gonna have a really good time. It doesn't matter if it explodes on day one and it gets like really big and stuff because that's honestly kind of just a pipe dream at this point for some people.
Hmm.
You can only really hope it becomes the next Undertale, or some people, most people kind of have that sort of ambition because of those games, and they kind of most of them kind of just fall at the steps, and it's like I don't feel like going through all those hoops and stuff to make a game. I just want to have these really cool ideas and stuff. And with uh, with some games or whatever, it's just they don't really get that sort of following, and it's kind of hard to talk to other people about these things because it's like most people are kind of into games they already know about, and it's hard to really talk about other people about just games that people haven't really tried all that much.
Hmm.
I think I think in terms of conversation, whenever you're mostly the one that's really kind of piloting the ship, and you don't really have a co-pilot. You're mostly the passenger, and with indie games, it's hard to talk about something that people don't really know about, and and you kind of have to have faith that it's like, oh hey, you should try this game, and you have to kind of have faith that they're probably going to try it, or or that or that they're kind of interested enough to just kind of hear it out and stuff. Um, and it's also kind of it's a bit of a commitment to kind of just sit down and play a game sometimes because sometimes playing a game it depends on how much time it takes to really play the game, or sometimes it takes its time to really kind of get sold on what the game is at some point. And usually you need to hear about it from like other people, or you need to have some sort of insight already on these really weird niche games to really talk about it to other people sometimes, to have interesting conversations and stuff, to kind of share your perspectives and stuff, because usually it's like the people that play the games versus the people that don't. Like if I'm always ending up talking to people that have never really played these sort of games and stuff. And and they don't really have any sort of perspective or insight to really share based on, but whereas I've played these games and I've developed my own opinions on these games, where it's like these people, they either don't care, or they and most of the time they don't care. It's like they want to go back to their Call of Duties and Minecrafts and stuff. And it's hard to find communities where people actually care about indie games. And I've kind of tried to start up I've tried starting up like some communities and stuff where it's like I have a bunch of people that really just want to talk about indie games and just that sort of thing, like, and it's really fun. And it gets quiet though. It's kind of it's hard to find your audience and stuff and that sort of thing. So I think I'm starting to go a different route where it's like I'm starting to try out game jams, so that I can probably knock out two birds with one stone, where I can figure out how to make games, but at the same time, I could probably try to network and try to start like some communities and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just like throwing yourself right out into it. It's probably the best way to learn. It's like exposure or whatever,
Yeah,
exposing yourself to the elements.
yeah.
Um,
I think I need to really try to do some game jams a little more and stuff. That would be really helpful and stuff.
yeah. Another thing that you mentioned about like having conversations about indie games with people who don't really like play many indie games, or maybe they've only heard of like Undertale or something. I feel like it is definitely tough to like talk about indie games or try to like convince someone to play an indie game that they've never even heard of. But it sort of helps if they've actually like seen gameplay of the game or something. So when they see someone like Markiplier, or see someone like Donkey playing it and having a good time and making jokes and all that, then it sort of gives them more of a perspective of what's the game about, and maybe they'll think, oh, maybe I'd have fun playing that game too, and maybe I'll buy it or whatever. So that's
Yeah,
how that works.
I think for me, I've had a hard time kind of trying to follow these sort of like gameplay channels or whatever. Um, but at the same time they kind of double as like this resource towards like finding these like smaller titles and stuff. But most of the time, with bigger personalities and bigger gaming channels, um, they usually part of it is to capitalize off of trends, but another part of it is to kind of just like, hey, there's this game that's on the Steam storefront or whatever. Let's give it a try and see what it's all about and stuff. And I think for me, I've never found a gaming channel that doesn't scream 90%. Well, that's a misnomer. Some of them are like super energetic and all in your face, and then some of them try to have this comedic style. But like, I think for me, I kind of just I want something that's kind of chill, but not like how do I describe it? Something that's more subtle, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I think that would. And I also think with indie games or whatever, there's a lot of people that are trying to develop let's play channels based on indie games and stuff. There's a medium towards there's a medium that's trying to grow off of something that hasn't really had its feet planted or whatever. And then there's a bunch of people that are trying to climb on top of each other to just try to share these games and try to get the word out there that these games are really great. But the problem is that they don't really have a large enough following to have a voice about like, hey, you should probably try this game. It's it's uh it's like some kind of Dante's Inferno sort of thing where it's it's kind of like uh I think there was something where it's like there was something depicted where there was just a bunch of people climbing like over like piles of people in like hell or something. And that's just the image that's kind of coming to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um so so how do people kind of grow? How do people try to grow off of like no, that's kind of a trick question because it's kind of a cursed problem where you it's a double negative that requires some kind of sacrifice in the middle. Uh, I was watching this uh, conversation not conversation convention thing. I was watching this convention thing that was talking about like cursed design where it takes two different things where it's like people that want to play to win or people that want to cooperate and just have a good time and some fun, and how like these sorts of different things or whatever different um, these different design ideas they don't really mesh together, and there's something that needs to be cut down in the middle to make it work. And with indie games and people like that are doing let's plays on that stuff, it's a different concept overall. That's not really game design, but it's more. It's trying to succeed off of something that hasn't succeeded yet, and as a result, they both kind of fail. So, and with some let's play channels or whatever, it can be really difficult to kind of find your footing and stuff when everybody's trying to climb over on top of each other, and and you know, I think that's just the internet in general. That's kind of like you can apply that anywhere.
Yeah.
Just everybody's just on this task to try and be heard at some point, but they can't because it's like they don't have a huge enough following to reach enough people and stuff. And with the current internet, it's this it's this certain kind of hell, I guess.
The internet is Dante's Inferno.
The internet is Dante's Inferno. Yeah. I don't know a lot about Dante's Inferno. I just know it
Me
has
neither.
something to do with hell.
Yeah.
Hell again.
Mm-hmm.
um. And I think part of the process is really kind of going through a gradual grind where eventually you get heard at some point, and you reach the promised land of being the big man with the big voice.
The
And
Holy Land.
the local man. But like I think in some ways it's like once you reach that certain point where you have a higher voice and you just explode at some point, you just at some point you kind of have a lot of power, and you have a lot more power than you realize, where you have a lot of influence over other people that reaches kind of a lot of different people, like just a lot of different monitors, a lot of different computers, a lot of different tablets. Just like the people that watch that stuff get influenced by that stuff, and it's it's a certain responsibility where and it's not really something that you really think about all the time. Like when you get that sort of level, I think
Hmm.
at some point it just becomes a game about the numbers at this point, to just try to keep them up and try to still have that voice and still try to stay on top of things. But I think it doesn't really matter if you're really focused, just really hyper focused on the numbers and stuff. Like that can, sure, it can like reach a bunch of different voices and stuff, but like if you try to reach like a mass crowd of people, then at some point it's like you're gonna have a hard time trying to hear people that have like some good insight on that sort of thing. I mean, you might run into some really smart people at the same time, but like at some point there's just a lot of voices that kind of get drowned out by the droves of people that are also trying to. It's a cycle, dude. It's like a vicious cycle. First
Yeah.
there's. Oh my god! So first there's the people that make these games, then there's the people that make like content based on those games, and then there's the people that follow those people that try to speak their mind or whatever. But then there's the people that also just try to do the same exact thing. There's a lot of
Hmm.
people trying to do the same thing, but there's just a constant quiet.
Hmm.
Oh my god, it is a vicious cycle. I just had like a eureka like big brain thing or whatever. Um I think it's also nice to have like small time streamers or something where it's like they're not really as big, so that you can kind of linger around and chat and kind of just like you can watch them play and they're having some fun stuff, and then you chat about like how they're playing, and it's just the game they're playing, or just how their day is and stuff. I think with Twitch or whatever, it's a really nice medium or whatever if you're kind of just starting out. But like with some platforms like YouTube or Twitter or whatever, it feels very cold and cutthroat, where
Hmm.
you don't really get to hear a lot of people speak all the time. And even starting out like with Twitch, it's like if you don't really have a following and if you're streaming to just your bros and your pals, then it's fine. It doesn't really matter if you. I mean, it's cool if you have a following that develops after that. But I think it's just it can feel really isolating when you're trying to say something, and you don't really hear anything in return, and it's some kind of call and response, and you're kind of just tossing the ball, but you don't. You're trying to play catch, but you end up playing catch with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really weird just like starting out streaming without really having much of a following, because like you pretty much don't really have an audience to like speak to or interact with. So it's like, how do you really build that audience? That's the
Yeah.
question. And that
Um.
that could sometimes be a lot up to like just luck, really. People just randomly clicking on, and maybe what games you're playing. Maybe if you have like a YouTube channel that people know you from, if you like got a huge following there, and that I guess helps.
It doesn't really matter how cool you're playing or whatever. Or it doesn't matter how much effort you like put into something or whatever. Like it, it's part of it is just a large part of it is luck, and another part of it is also kind of like networking or whatever, where you're kind of just like you're you're not just trying to like share your thing and just kind of like have everybody watch it, but you are also the viewer at the same time, where you're trying to you're kind of putting yourself out there by being someone that is a viewer, and then from there you kind of work up. So it's not a food chain or like a vicious cycle, but it's more of a it's more of a hierarchy. But the hierarchy kind of looks a little weird, and it also kind of it has a bunch of different trees and like entanglements and stuff, a bunch of little loose wires kind of flailing around everywhere. Let's stop talking about that. That's we. I mean, I could probably make a chart or something based on that stuff, but like, oh wow, this has gone on for a solid 50 minutes.
Yeah, we've been recording for a while.
Yeah, this is good. Um, so so what games have you been? Let's change the topics. What games have you been playing?
Um, Trying to think, like other than League of Legends, which I've gotten back into again for like what the 20th time. I've been playing this game for like 10 years at this point.
You've been playing like on and off and stuff.
Yeah, on and off for 10 years, but
Would you say you have like a love-hate relationship with League of Legends?
oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I think it's a good game. That's why I keep coming back to it. It's just it can get old after a while, I guess. I guess that's why the developers are like constantly updating the game to sort of try to keep it fresh, but sometimes it can just get exhausting if you play it too much. So I think that's pretty much where it's at. Another thing about League of Legends is it's got a pretty steep learning curve, so it's really tough to get into if you don't really know anything about League of Legends, or if you don't really know how to play, or if you're not familiar with MOBAs or whatever. Especially considering like everyone who plays League of Legends has been playing for a while and they know all the mechanics and all the intricacies, so it's pretty tough to really find the motivation to learn. So that tends to like deter a lot of newer people. But for me, as someone who knows the game already, it's super easy to just get back into like whenever and just play a game.
So
Um,
would you say it's hard to get into other games because it's kind of hard to really get good at like every other game that's been out and stuff?
um, Sort of. I mean, with competitive games like say CS:GO or Overwatch or even TF2 or something, where like a lot of they definitely have like a huge following of people who have been playing the game for a while. So yeah, it's tough to sort of get into those games competitively unless I had like a reason or motivation to get behind those sort of games, you know.
Are you talking like esports or
Uh, I don't know. What motivates people to accomplish things? What motivates people to like climb the ranks in Overwatch or something?
uh, good question. Hang on, my
Is
cat
it
wants
just
to go
is it just
inside.
the
Hang on. Come inside, Taco. Hi, Taco. So I tried to soundproof my room by like covering it in like blanket or whatever, and now it came off because it's like Taco wanted to go inside. But anyway, what motivates people to get good at games? Um, so I think it's not really necessarily just really getting good. It's more that so multiplayer games are kind of designed to be technically played forever, and played forever with and against other people, and it can sometimes depend on the game, like depending on like the objectives and its design and stuff. But like basically, multiplayer games are about some of it's about competition and some of it's about just playing with your pals and stuff and just having a good time with your friends and your groupies or whatever. Or sometimes it's about kind of finding these groups to play with and just meeting people and connecting with. That's really the basis of what is a multiplayer game. But like people just naturally get good at these games over time by just playing with your buddies a long time or whatever. You eventually start to learn some strats or just learn some things you can really pull with the game and just learn what works versus what doesn't. And I mean, with some games like TF2, some people just never really get good at the game and they kind of just. But I mean, some people just they keep playing these games because they're already good at the game and there isn't really any other game that kind of satisfies the same experience that the other game has. But then over time these games might die and they might still continue to play them, but at some point it's like usually you have to kind of find like a different game to play like when these games start to die and there's not really as many people playing them. And it's not really necessarily about motivation. It's not about motivation of getting good, but it's more kind of about just kind of going in for like a certain experience for like what you want to get out of these games. And over time you get good by familiar, or you kind of just stop playing and you just if the early experiences you have with a multiplayer game is fun, even if you're getting crushed, then it's good because then you might want to keep playing it over and over and stuff until eventually you get good and you're not really dying as much. And this is kind of ideal. This is the ideal outcome, and sometimes you don't really get a lot of multiplayer like PvP based games or whatever because it's like you don't get those sort of experiences that are like really fun. Oh, my cat's getting everywhere. You don't get these experiences that are really all that fun because you just keep getting crushed repetitiously over and over and over. And you kind of have to get in this like Herculean mindset of just kind of maybe not Hercules. It's some sort of myth that involves like pushing a boulder and just kind of keep like pushing the boulder over the ridge until eventually it kind of just goes up on the top. So metaphors aside, some part of it is going in with a certain experience in mind that's promised by its developers and its advertisers and stuff, and kind of just going in for like a certain good time, I guess. Like with League of Legends or whatever, I would assume there's certain strats that you just really like to pull and stuff. There's certain things you really like about it that you just can't really get in any other game, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite like characters or something?
So I spent a while trying to learn this one champ just because I just want to get really good at someone who's like super underplayed. So that's Talia the Stoneweaver, and she sort of has like a lot of combos that she can pull off, a lot of tricks that she can do with her ultimate, which summons like a wall. So I definitely spent a lot of time like learning that to get good as that. But there are a bunch of different champions that you can figure out different cool play styles to sort of make them your own. Um, ye-
That sounds cool. Like, so like Talia, is she like a is she does she like I don't want to say area denial. What's the word when you're kind of locking down things or whatever? You're locking down areas with, like you said, stone walls. So
Crowd control? I don't know. Zoning, maybe? I don't know. Area denial works.
yeah, area
Yeah, you sort of want to like
in a literal sense, I guess.
control the crowds. sort of just deny the areas. That's what you do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I mean like I think when I use the word area denial, I'm thinking of in my game in my mind TF2 with the engineer or whatever, because he has
Uh-huh.
like he has a turret that he can set up. But
Hmm.
I think in your sense, it's more you're literally setting up a wall, and they can't really get through it. You need to
Yep.
build a wall.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, that I think for me, I really I used to really love TF2 because of this one class Pyro or whatever. You could just do a bunch of different combos with the character and stuff, and you really kind of had to adapt to like their play style and stuff, and it's really fun to play, and it's very satisfying to pull off some of the class's tricks. But one of the problems that I have with TF2 is that I'm sorry if I'm getting a little too loud. Like my cat's getting all over the place. So one of the things that I really like about TF2 and Pyro is that you can just basically do a bunch of really dumb stuff with it with Pyro or whatever, where it's like if you time your like air blast correctly to like someone that's shooting a projectile at you, you can you can like send them flying across the entire map, or you could basically just instantly kill them if you just pull it off right. And there's actually like there's part of it is that there's a little mind game that goes on when you're fighting Pyro, and it's like there's a little like rock paper scissors sort of little moment, and I think in some ways like that design is a little flawed, but at the same time it still feels really satisfying to pull off when it pulls off right. But the class itself is very weak, and it's really hard to kind of just get that sort of satisfying play style that's going, because there's people that just either know the meta, or there's just you get these games where there's just the design doesn't really conduce the fun bits to really happen, like pulling off a really good air blast or pulling off a really cool like combo or whatever. It's it's hard to get that when there's like probably like 32 players running around on a map, because it's like the class it's a pick class, and it's not really high tier or whatever. They're pretty niche in their like in their play style and stuff, but they're pretty satisfying to pull off when it in those few really rare moments. And it's just you don't really get those moments to really, and you have to kind of play a different class if you want to win all the time. So then I ended up playing these other classes that I don't really want to play as much, but I think it's then at that point it's just I want to win, and then
Hmm.
I don't get to win, because it's like the other team just gets all these people that like are just rolling it all the time, and then it becomes a repetitious cycle of like just one more game, maybe this one's gonna be the one, just one more game, maybe this one's gonna be the one, but no, it never really shows up, and I'm just stuck in an endless loop trying to play a game, trying to get these fun bits to come, but then I don't get the fun.
Hmm. See, I guess I feel like we pretty much answered my question from earlier about what like sort of motivates people to get good at these competitive games is sort of finding that strategy that you really want to learn because it looks really cool. Like maybe you found like YouTube videos of this dude pulling off this pyro strategy and you thought, oh wow, that's really funny, that's really cool. I want to learn that strategy and pull off those like cool moves, you know? And I think that sort of depth to a competitive game is what makes so many people want to learn them and want to get good at them despite how much of a struggle it is. So maybe it's not so much about winning the game, but more so about self improvement and like mastery and skill and whatnot.
um, part of it can be really part of it can come down to mastery and stuff, and part of it can be like kind of just trying to figure out the meta and stuff, and trying to adapt around it with what you have, and trying to use like your niche play style to really kind of slay and just pull off some really cool stuff. And um, so part of what people so part of getting good at like these games, I guess. I mean, the self improvement aspect of it can be pretty fun, and just having the pride to say like, yeah, I'm the best player in this game it can be pretty cool, I guess. Um, uh, hmm, uh, I'm starting to draw a blank, but multiplayer games, yes. I think I want to play other multiplayer games more and stuff, but it's like it's it's kind of hard to find like new multiplayer games that have that same depth that are fun to play because like when you try these games that have depth, you have people that already know like everything they need to kind of just really beat you up in several different ways and with little restraint, and then you get into these games and then you just have to go through the grind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's and I guess finding the strats kind of motivates you towards like just trying to find the really fun strats that to motivates you, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's why esports is sort of a lot of what makes or breaks a competitive game because the people who watch the professional players, they sort of want to imitate the professional strategies.
If it's
They sort of set that goal for themselves or whatever.
so if like the game's fun to watch, like then it's also like fun to like people want to kind of play that and trying to replicate that, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It's like professional sports, sort of. Like people see like these great like football plays or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if the metaphor works. I don't know if the comparison is that great. But
It probably works.
I don't
Um,
know.
it kind of inspires people to play football, but I think it also part of it comes to really kind of being exposed to a culture of that like early on and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I wasn't really into sports all that much, but I was always into video games, and my peers weren't really into video games, and that was just always the case for a long time. And until like the internet, it's like I was kind of the only one that was in this world where I really love to play video games. And with sports and that sort of thing, it's it's kind of more it's more put on you or whatever to kind of it's put onto more people overall that really like sports, and I think for video games and stuff, it's more this osmosis in a way, where it's like, hey man, have you heard about that new Call of Duty game? You heard about that Fortnite, man? It's like it's part of its osmosis, and it's like, hmm, I'm thinking about this a little too much. Wait, what were you? Oh yeah, we were talking about sports, but like, what were we talking about before that? Something about
Uh,
like,
just like multiplayer games, esports. Like what motivates people to like
oh yeah,
get
yeah,
good?
yeah. It's I think it's seeing a cool thing that you want to try in the game, and I think it's overall just seeing fun gameplay, I guess, and just I guess having that sort of osmosis of hearing good things and then giving it a try, or hear like trying to do like these really cool strats, like I think for some games that are really fun to watch, like early CS:GO or like Street Fighter Third Strike, I think these because these games have a lot of depth, they look really fun to play, but in execution they become really hard to kind of just really get a grip on and stuff. Like you remember that one video where it's like there was this guy Foon that was like bee hopping or whatever. It's from supposedly IV to connector.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's like a legendary video or whatever in like gaming as a whole, where someone's using like abusing like a certain like skill mechanic in this game to essentially break the game to their will, and that feels very empowering. And because there isn't really a lot of games that really give you that give you this sense of like control that you have over the game. Sometimes they just kind of really they try to limit like what you can do in a game, because it's like the more that you can like get away with and break with the game, the less people kind of it consequently it leads to this sense that like it needs to be nerfed so that like newer people can kind of get into the game. But that in a sense kind of makes the game a little more boring. And in this and it's I guess it's the market's kind of stigmatized in a way where you kind of have to have these sort of games that don't really have as much depth, but just enough to really seem interesting, or just have people just kind of talking about how they've had fun with the games and stuff. I guess it really depends on the market and stuff, and I think it would be better if like we had a different perspective of someone that like was really into like games that essentially lacked depth but were still very fun.
What sort of game could you think of that lacks depth and
I
is
think
also like really fun?
I think maybe I should rephrase that. Like a game that has a certain depth ratio where it's kind of easy to pick up and have fun with. It's easy to get into and play initially, but it has just a little bit enough to make mastering the game satisfying or like fun. Like once you kind of learn that skill to just really play that game and start really just going on these massive kill streaks or something, then that makes people want to play the game. So wait, what was the question again?
Like what is an example of a game
That
that
like
doesn't have a lot of depth but is still pretty fun?
um so uh you know what? I think I'm kind of basing my experiences off of something else, and I've never really given like some things a try. I've only looked at it from a different perspective or whatever, from like an outsider's perspective. So, like, I can't say that Call of Duty or Fortnite lack depth, because they probably do have depth to
Yeah,
these
totally.
games. They probably have depth to them, but it's just we kind of just keep joking about them because it's like it's just it's just the very big hit game to play. That's and in Call of Duty especially, because it's always been just the game that everybody's been playing over years and stuff.
Yeah.
It's the big hit game that everybody has to play, and I think we assume that it doesn't have any depth because it's popular or whatever, or because our game that we are playing is has more depth or it's more fun. And I think I'm kind of drawing up a false comparison. So, um, yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question.
I can think of one, I think. So here's another huge game that's popular with the masses right now.
Oh, I
I
think I know
think
what you're going to talk
Fall
about.
Guys
Yeah, yeah.
isn't a very in-depth game, but it's a very fun game. So you don't necessarily need to like master some sort of like skills or esports or whatever. There's not really much mastery to Fall Guys. It's just some 3D platformer where you jump around and dive and get toppled over and fall a lot. And there's like a lot of randomness, I guess, involved. It's sort of like just like a party game, like Mario Party or something,
Yeah.
except
I
super multiplayer.
yeah, Fall Guys, it's I think its success is kind of based around its lack of depth.
Mm.
That's that's interesting. That's it's like it's very accessible and easy to get into because it's kind of marketed as this big party game.
Hmm.
And I think the fact that there's a lot of players that are like both playing against and with each other that are I think that that kind of adds to because it's like the chaos is so funneled that it's not really a game that you play to win, but it's more to just have a good time.
Yeah.
And but as a general social experience and stuff, it's actually kind of well, part of it is kind of fun because I guess if you look up some Discord community servers or something, you'll probably find a dime a dozen just bunch of different communities that just play that game. Or they try to specialize in a bit of everything and then seem like super generic or something. But like I think yeah, with Fall Guys or whatever, it's a party game. It's not something that you really. It would be weird if there was like an esports like Fall Guys scene or whatever because it would almost seem kind of against the point or whatever of Fall Guys. It's like I mean there is people that want to master the game and try to get super good at it and that's fine and all. It's like but like I mean it's just very very accessible and I kind of can't wait until there's like more things that are more mini games involved.
Mm.
And yeah, it's that's interesting that you brought up Fall Guys. I think that kind of I that just slipped my mind because I keep my mind kind of defaults to kind of like the other things that are popular, but I forget that like Fall Guys is the new big thing now. It's like the
Yeah.
big hit.
When you think of like popular multiplayer games, like the first things that come to mind are like Fortnite, Call of Duty, all these super competitive games that are all about winning, but like people forget that like multiplayer games that are just about like having fun and like not they don't really have to have a lot of depth to be addictive, I guess.
Yeah, I think you could also kind of apply that same like I don't want to say argument, but like you could apply that same argument for like Minecraft, I guess. Like
Yeah, I think so.
it's a pretty simple sandbox game, but it doesn't really count as a multiplayer game, even though it is multiplayer. I mean, I guess I'm basing it off my experience where it's like I want to try and find a server where I can kind of do Minecraft things where I like build a house or something, but then there's like a bunch of server plugins that everybody sets up where it's like you can't really play with other people or just do that. And then you try to set up a house or something, but you pre-spawn in this something that someone already made and you can't really destroy it or just try to take some things of your own. It's it's like everybody's marking their own real estate and you can't really do anything with it.
Hmm.
And I think I think with that game you get really sucked in and stuff. Just and you just kind of get stuck and you spend so many hours just doing one more thing and then it's like 1 in the morning or something and it's like Jesus, where did all that time go? Yeah, I don't want to play that game again. So I think let's end the podcast here or whatever.
Yeah,
It
that's a good idea.
it's yeah, we talked about a bunch of different things.
Hmm.
I kind of just wanted to talk about like just the indie scene, but then it got it got to so many other different places or whatever. It's just
Yeah,
it's really it's really weird and crazy.
yeah, we covered a bunch of stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. Um. All right. This is the end of the podcast. We are out.